The evening light filtered through the windows of Albert Green's home office as he scrolled through yet another month of credit card statements. His eyes burned from staring at the screen for hours, but something in the numbers kept nagging at him. 25 years of marriage had taught him to trust his instincts, and right now, those instincts were screaming that something was wrong. He pulled up their joint account history, creating a spreadsheet to track the patterns he'd noticed. $300 at Caldwell's on a Tuesday when Diane claimed to be having lunch with her sister. $800 at a high-end boutique downtown during what should have been her yoga class. A string of ATM withdrawals, each just under the daily limit, scattered throughout the past 3 months. The sound of heels clicking on hardwood pulled his attention from the screen. Diane appeared in the doorway, a vision in her new designer dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Her blonde hair fell in perfect waves around her shoulders, and her makeup was flawless, too perfect for a casual evening at home. "Still working, honey." Her voice carried that practiced sweetness that had once charmed him at a college party 27 years ago. "You know what they say about all work and no play." Albert leaned back in his chair, studying his wife with new eyes. "Just reviewing some statements. There seem to be quite a few unusual charges lately." Diane glided into the room, trailing expensive perfume. Another recent purchase he didn't remember approving. She positioned herself behind his chair, her manicured hands finding his shoulders. "Oh, you know how it is with the platinum card," she purred. "Sometimes I lose track of the little things." "Little things?" Albert highlighted a series of charges. "There's nothing little about $5,000 disappearing from our savings last week." Her fingers stilled for just a moment before resuming their massage. "That was for Christina, darling. She had some unexpected expenses at college. You know how these things pop up." Albert fought the urge to shake off her touch. Their daughter Christina was attending an expensive private university, her entire education already funded through his careful financial planning and years of hard work. He'd started saving the day she was born, determined to give her the opportunities he never had growing up. "Funny," he said, keeping his voice neutral. "Christina hasn't mentioned any additional expenses to me. Usually she calls when she needs anything." "Well, you've been so busy with work lately." Diane's tone carried a hint of reproach. "She probably didn't want to bother you. You know how considerate our daughter can be." Albert thought about the previous weekend when he'd spent hours on the phone with Christina, discussing her classes and future plans. She hadn't mentioned any financial difficulties then. "When exactly did she ask for this money?" he asked. Diane moved around his desk, perching herself on the edge in a way that was probably meant to be distracting. Her new dress rode up slightly, and Albert noticed the price tag she'd forgotten to remove, partially hidden beneath the hem. "Oh, you know how it is with these things. They just come up." "Speaking of Christina," she called earlier. "She's coming home this weekend for a visit." The abrupt change of subject didn't go unnoticed. Albert minimized his spreadsheet, but kept the browser window open. "I thought she had a big project due next week." "She said she needs a break. College can be so stressful." Diane reached for her phone as it buzzed, her fingers flying over the screen before she tucked it away. "I thought we could all have dinner together on Saturday, like old times." "Actually, I need to head to the office tomorrow," he said. "The Reynolds account needs attention." The lie felt bitter on his tongue, but something told him he needed to play along. "Don't wait up for dinner." "But it's Saturday," Diane protested, her perfectly shaped eyebrows drawing together in a practiced frown. "You're always working. No wonder Christina feels like she can't come to you with her problems." The manipulation was so obvious now that he was looking for it. How many years had she been using their daughter as a shield, deflecting his questions with guilt and emotional tactics? "The Reynolds account is worth 7 figures, he said, gathering his laptop and briefcase. "Some things can't wait." Diane's phone buzzed again, and this time Albert caught a glimpse of the screen before she snatched it away. A name he didn't recognize. Ethan, followed by a heart emoji. "I'll be late," he said, watching her reaction carefully. "Don't hold dinner." Instead of heading to the office, Albert parked his car 2 blocks from their house, hidden behind a row of mature oak trees. The position gave him a clear view of their driveway, while keeping him concealed from any passing traffic. Years of negotiating contracts had taught him the value of patience and observation. He pulled up the banking app on his phone, scrolling through months of statements. The pattern became clearer with each transaction he reviewed. Large withdrawals followed by hotel charges, expensive restaurants he'd never visited, jewelry stores on days when Diane was supposed to be at her book club. At 3:45 p.m., a sleek black BMW he'd never seen before pulled into their driveway. Albert's heart pounded as he watched Diane emerge from the house minutes later. She wore an outfit he didn't recognize, tight jeans, and a low-cut blouse that wasn't her usual style. She climbed into the passenger seat, and through his phone's camera zoom, Albert captured the moment she leaned over to kiss the driver. The BMW pulled away, and Albert followed at a safe distance, thankful for the heavy weekend traffic that made it easy to remain unnoticed. The car led him to the Parkview Hotel downtown, an expensive establishment where he'd often hosted business clients. He parked across the street, documenting everything with his phone's camera. 3 hours later, when Diane and her companion emerged, Albert had enough photographic evidence to confirm his suspicions. The man with her was younger, maybe mid-30s, with a kind of carefully cultivated appearance that suggested more style than substance. They kissed again in the parking lot before she got into her own car, which had been valet parked that evening. Albert returned home to find Diane in the kitchen, humming as she prepared dinner. She'd changed back into the dress she'd worn earlier, but her hair was slightly mussed, her lipstick freshly applied. "You're home late," she said, stirring something that smelled of herbs and wine. "The Reynolds account must have been complicated." "Very." Albert watched her movements, noting how she avoided direct eye contact. "Things aren't always what they seem." "What's that supposed to mean?" She turned to face him, wooden spoon in hand. "Nothing. Just thinking out loud." He headed for the stairs. "I'm not hungry. I think I'll take a shower and turn in early." In their bedroom, the evidence of her deception was everywhere once he knew to look for it. A receipt fallen behind the dresser showed another hotel charge from 2 months ago. Her phone, carelessly left on the nightstand while she cooked, lit up with a message, "Missing you already. Same time next week." Over the next week, Albert began a methodical investigation of their lives. Each night, after Diane fell asleep, he documented everything. Financial records showed a pattern of increasing withdrawals and suspicious charges going back at least 6 months. Hotel receipts, restaurant bills, and jewelry purchases created a timeline of betrayal that made his stomach churn. He hired a private investigator who quickly identified the BMW's owner as Ethan Weston, a real estate agent who specialized in high-end properties. The PI's preliminary report showed that Ethan had a history of relationships with wealthy married women. 2 divorces in the past 5 years, both involving significant financial settlements. The final piece fell into place when Christina came home that weekend. Albert was in his study when he heard the front door open, followed by the sound of excited female voices. He moved quietly to the top of the stairs, listening as his wife and daughter spoke in hushed tones. "Did you tell him about the extra tuition money?" Christina asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Of course not, sweetie," Diane replied. "You know your father. He'd only worry. Besides, what he doesn't know won't hurt him." "And Ethan? Does he still think?" "Sha." Diane's sharp interruption echoed through the foyer. "Everything's fine. Just stick to the story we discussed." Albert felt something break inside him. Not just his wife, but his daughter, his only child, for whom he'd sacrificed countless hours and opportunities, was complicit in the deception. He thought about all the late nights at the office, the missed vacations, the extra clients he'd taken on, all to ensure Christina would have every advantage in life. He descended the stairs slowly, his footsteps deliberate on each step, Both women jumped at his appearance, their guilty expressions confirming everything he needed to know. "Dad." Christina's smile was too bright, too forced, just like her mother's. "I was just telling Mom about my new classes." "Really?" Albert kept his voice steady, years of courtroom experience helping him maintain control. "Not about the extra tuition money you needed." The color drained from Christina's face. What? "Your mother took out $5,000 last week. Said it was for your unexpected college expenses." He looked between them, noting their identical expressions of panic. Funny how that coincided with a weekend stay at the Parkview Hotel downtown. Room service for two came to quite a bill. "Daddy, I can explain." Christina started, but Albert held up his hand. "Don't bother. I heard enough of your conversation just now." He turned to Diane, whose perfect mask had finally cracked. "Who's Ethan?" "The owner of that black BMW you've been meeting." Diane's face hardened, her practiced charm vanishing. "You've been spying on me." "No, I've been protecting my interests, something I should have done years ago." Albert pulled out his phone, showing them the photos he'd taken. "Would you like to explain these to me, or should I call our lawyer and let you explain it to him instead?" "You wouldn't dare," Diane hissed. "Everything I've done for this family." Albert laughed, a harsh sound that made both women flinch. "For this family? You mean for yourself? And you?" He turned to Christina. "I've paid for your education, your car, your credit cards, all while you helped your mother lie to me." "Mom said it wasn't hurting anyone." Christina protested, tears welling in her eyes. "She said you were too focused on work anyway, that you didn't care about what we needed." "What you needed?" Albert's voice was deadly quiet. "What you needed was integrity, honor. Instead, you learned to be just like her, manipulative and selfish." He pulled out his wallet and removed 2 credit cards, tossing them onto the kitchen counter. "These are yours, Christina. Consider them canceled. From now on, you can pay your own way through life." "Daddy, no. Please. I need those." Christina lunged for the cards, but Albert moved them out of reach. "What you need is to learn that actions have consequences. Both of you." He looked at Diane, who had remained unusually silent. "I suggest you call your friend Ethan and ask him for help with the bills from now on. I'll be staying at a hotel tonight. When I return, I expect some answers. Real ones this time." As he walked to the door, he heard Christina burst into tears, and Diane's harsh whisper, "Stop crying. We'll figure something out. We always do." Albert stepped into the cool evening air, his lawyer's mind already cataloging everything he needed to do. First, he called his bank and initiated a freeze on all joint accounts. Next, he contacted his attorney, Peter Lawson, authorizing him to begin divorce proceedings immediately. Finally, he instructed the private investigator to dig deeper into Ethan Weston's background, particularly his history with other wealthy families. As he drove away from the house he'd worked so hard to provide, Albert felt a strange sense of clarity. The betrayal cut deep, but he hadn't built his life by being weak. He'd earned everything through hard work, determination, and an unwavering moral compass. If his wife and daughter thought they could take advantage of that, they were about to learn a very expensive lesson. And consequences. The sun was setting as he checked into a hotel across town, casting long shadows that seemed fitting for the end of this chapter of his life. But Albert Green wasn't finished. This wasn't just about money or infidelity anymore. It was about justice, and he was going to make sure everyone involved understood exactly what that meant. The morning sun cast harsh shadows across Albert's hotel room as he methodically pieced together the extent of his wife's betrayal. His laptop displayed banking records, credit card statements, and property documents, a digital trail of deception that grew longer with each passing hour. A knock at his door broke his concentration. When he opened it, Christina stood there, mascara streaked down her cheeks. "Can we talk?" Her voice trembled. "Please, Dad." Albert stepped aside. letting her enter but maintaining his distance. How did you find me? Mom's been calling hotels since last night. Christina perched on the edge of the desk chair, looking small and lost. The Kingsley said they'd seen you. I'm sure your mother has been very busy. Albert turned his laptop screen toward her, almost as busy as she's been with these withdrawals. Care to explain why tuition payments were being made to a personal account instead of the university? Christina's fingers twisted in her lap. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Mom said she needed help with some investments. Investments. Albert pulled up a series of transactions. Is that what we're calling hotel charges and jewelry purchases now? She said you were never around. Christina's voice rose defensively. That you care more about work than us. That she was lonely. I worked 60-hour weeks to give you everything. Albert's voice cut through her excuses. Your education, your car, your lifestyle, none of it came free. I missed vacations and family events to build something for you. And this is how you repay me. You don't understand what it's like with her. Christina stood, pacing the room. She has a way of making everything sound reasonable. She said Ethan was just helping with financial planning. Financial planning? Albert laughed harshly. Let me show you some financial planning. He pulled up property records. Your mother and her friend Ethan have been looking at multi-million-dollar properties. Care to guess where the down payment was supposed to come from? Christina's face paled. What are you talking about? They've been planning this for months. The withdrawals, the secret meetings, all leading up to what they hoped would be a profitable divorce settlement. He turned to face his daughter fully. And you helped them. I didn't know. Tears spilled down Christina's cheeks. I swear, Dad, I only knew she was seeing someone. She said you two had grown apart, that it wasn't really cheating if... If what? If you both lied to my face. If you helped her hide withdrawals under the guise of tuition payments. He pointed to the screen. 5,000 here, 8,000 there. Did you think I wouldn't notice? Before Christina could respond, her phone buzzed. Diane's name flashed on the screen. Put it on speaker, Albert commanded. Christina hesitated, then pressed the button. Diane's voice filled the room, sharp with anger. Where have you been? I've been trying to reach you for hours. I'm with Dad, Christina replied, her voice small. A pause, then. Perfect. Ask him if he's done with his little power play. The credit cards aren't working. They're not just not working. They're canceled. Albert called out, Diane, everything goes through the lawyers now. 25 years of marriage, and this is how you treat me. Diane's voice rose. After everything I've done for you. Everything you've done. Albert's laugh was devoid of warmth. You mean like emptying our accounts, planning to sell our properties. Or maybe you mean carrying on an affair with a con man. Ethan is not a con man. Should we review his history? Albert pulled up his phone. Or should we discuss the properties you've been viewing together? The accounts you've been hiding? Diane's voice took on an edge. You're making assumptions about things you don't understand. Oh, I understand plenty. Albert clicked through more records. Should we talk about the cash withdrawals, the hotel charges, or the multi-million-dollar properties? Those were investment opportunities, right? Everything I did was for us. Diane's voice rose. For us. Albert shot back. You were never home. While I was working, you were off with Ethan, spending my money. Mom, Christina interrupted. Is it true about the properties? Were you really planning to leave? Sweetheart, he's twisting things. Diane protested. There's no need for you to. No more lies, Diane. Albert cut in. Show her the truth, for once in your life. Tell her about the down payment you were planning to make with her tuition money. Another pause. You're trying to turn her against me. You did that yourself. Albert's voice was ice. The accounts are closed. The divorce papers are being prepared. You want to play games. Fine. Let's see how well you play when you're paying your own bills. You can't do this. Diane's voice cracked. I've given you 25 years. And I've given you everything else. But that's done now. Albert's finger hovered over the end call button. Enjoy your time with Ethan. I'm sure he'll be just as interested when you can't access my money. He ended the call, leaving Christina staring at her phone in shock. Dad, please, she whispered. What am I supposed to do now? What everyone else in the world does. Take responsibility for your actions. Albert turned back to his laptop. The car needs to be returned by tomorrow. It's in my name. But how will I get to class? To work? Christina's voice trembled. That's not my problem anymore. He pulled up her tuition records. I've paid through this semester. What happens after that is up to you. That's not fair. Christina's voice broke. I can't afford. Life isn't fair, but it is consistent. Albert closed his laptop. Actions have consequences. Your mother taught you manipulation. I'm teaching you responsibility. Consider it your final lesson from me. Christina fled the room, slamming the door behind her. Albert waited until her footsteps faded before pulling out his phone. He had research to do. Hours passed as he dug deeper into Ethan Weston's background. The man's digital footprint told a story that made Albert's blood boil. A history of failed businesses, questionable real estate deals, and relationships with wealthy married women. His phone buzzed with a text from Diane. Please, we need to talk. Things aren't what they seem. He ignored it, focusing instead on an email from his lawyer detailing the divorce strategy. Another text came through, this time from an unknown number. Mr. Green, this is Ethan Weston. I think we should discuss this situation like businessmen. Albert considered the message for a moment, then made a decision. He dialed the number. Ethan answered on the first ring. Mr. Green, thank you for. Let me be clear, Albert interrupted. This call is being recorded. Everything you say can and will be used in upcoming legal proceedings. A pause. There's no need for threats. I'm sure we can reach an arrangement that benefits everyone. An arrangement? Albert's laugh was cold. Like the arrangement you had with Helen Rogers last year, or Angela Moore the year before that. I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. Albert pulled up the files he gathered. 2 divorces in 5 years, both involving wealthy women who mysteriously lost substantial amounts of money. A pattern of questionable real estate deals. Shall I continue? You're making a mistake. Ethan's voice hardened. Diane and I are finished. Just like your real estate license will be when the state board reviews your recent transactions, Albert said, his voice as firm as steel. Did you really think I wouldn't investigate? I wouldn't find the pattern. Listen, Mr. Green. No, you listen. Stay away from my wife. Stay away from my properties. Any communication goes through my lawyer. Understand? He ended the call before Ethan could respond, then forwarded the recording to his attorney. His phone immediately lit up with texts from Diane. What did you say to Ethan? You're ruining everything. Please let me explain. Albert ignored them all, focusing instead on documenting every transaction, every lie, every scheme. By evening, his hotel room looked like a war room, with papers spread across every surface and his laptop running multiple searches. A knock at his door revealed Peter Lawson, his attorney of 20 years. You've been busy, Peter said, surveying the room. Just getting started. Albert handed him a stack of documents. Take a look at these property listings. They were planning to sell everything out from under me. Peter whistled low as he reviewed the papers. They really thought they could get away with this. They're not the first to try, Albert replied, and they won't be the last. But they made one crucial mistake. What's that? They thought I was just another rich husband too busy with work to notice the details. Albert smiled grimly. They forgot that paying attention to details is what made me rich in the first place. Peter settled into a chair, spreading the documents on the desk. Walk me through what you found. For the next 2 hours, Albert laid out the evidence. Bank statements showing systematic withdrawals, Property records revealing Ethan's pattern of questionable deals, email exchanges between Diane and various real estate agents, all coordinated through Ethan. She's been planning this for at least a year, Albert concluded, building up cash reserves, exploring property options, probably hoping to file for divorce once they had everything in place. But you caught them first. Peter nodded. What do you want to do? I want everything. Albert's voice was firm. The house, the investments, all of it. She gets nothing. Given the evidence of financial misconduct, that's not unrealistic. Peter made notes. But be prepared. She'll fight dirty. Let her try. Albert pulled up more files. I've documented everything. Every lie, every scheme, every manipulation. She wants to play hardball. Fine. I've been playing hardball my entire career. His phone buzzed again. Christina, Mom's hysterical. Says you're trying to destroy her life. Please, can we just talk about this? Albert showed the message to Peter. See, still trying to manipulate the situation. Want my advice? Peter leaned back. Let them keep digging. The deeper the hole, the stronger our case. A knock at the door interrupted them. Albert opened it to find Diane standing there, her perfect makeup unable to hide her red-rimmed eyes. We need to talk, she demanded, trying to push past him. Albert blocked her entry. Everything goes through the lawyers now. 25 years of marriage. And this is how you treat me. Her voice rose, desperate. After everything I've done for you. Everything you've done. Albert repeated, voice razor-sharp. Like emptying our accounts. Planning to sell our properties, or maybe carrying on an affair with a con man. Ethan's not a con man. Should we go over the evidence? Albert pulled out his phone. Or shall we discuss the shell companies he used to drain other women's accounts? Diane's face hardened. You're making a mistake, Albert. I know things about your practice that could hurt you. Are you threatening me? Albert's voice was deadly quiet. Please, say that again. My lawyer would love to add attempted blackmail to the divorce proceedings. Tears spilled down Diane's cheeks. Please, Albert. We can work this out. We can get counseling. Start over. There is no starting over. Albert's voice was final. You made your choices. Now you get to live with them. What about Christina? Diane tried one last angle. Are you really willing to hurt your own daughter? Christina made her choices too. Albert began closing the door. She chose to help you lie to me. Now she can help you figure out how to pay your own bills. You'll regret this, Diane hissed as the door closed. I'll make sure of it. Albert turned back to Peter, who had witnessed the entire exchange. Document everything, she just said. Every threat, every attempt at manipulation. Peter was already writing. She's not going to give up easily. No, Albert agreed, but neither am I. And unlike her, I have truth on my side. He spent the rest of the evening organizing evidence, preparing documents, and building a case that would not only ensure Diane got nothing in the divorce, but would expose every lie, every scheme, every betrayal. As midnight approached, Albert stood at the hotel window. Looking out over the city he conquered through decades of hard work and determination. He'd earned everything he had. And no one, not his manipulative wife, not his misguided daughter, not some smooth-talking con man, was going to take it away from him. His phone lit up with one final message from Christina. Mom's talking about selling the house, she says, since her name is on the deed. Albert typed back a single message. Check again. Everything's in a trust. She owns nothing. Then he turned back to his work, ready to ensure that justice, cold, hard, unforgiving justice, would be served. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Albert's downtown office as he methodically reviewed his presentation one final time. Each piece of evidence was organized in precise folders on his laptop. Bank statements, hotel receipts, property documents, text messages, a digital trail of betrayal that would soon shatter the perfect facade Diane and Christina had maintained for years. His secretary's voice crackled over the intercom. "Mr. Green, Ms. Phillips from the country club is on line 1 regarding tonight's arrangements. Put her through." Albert's voice remained steady as he picked up the phone, though his fingers tightened around the receiver. "Mr. Green," Theresa Phillips's usually confident tone wavered slightly. "The main hall is set up exactly as you requested. Screen, projector, seating for 200. But are you absolutely certain about this? Such a public venue. Your wife's reputation." "Their reputations," Albert interrupted, "are exactly what they deserve. Is the security team in position?" "Yes, they arrived an hour ago. No one will enter or leave without your approval." She paused. "The guest list. We've never seen anything like it. The entire board of directors, all the prominent families. Mr. Green, this will destroy them socially." "That's the point, Theresa. Make sure the bar is fully stocked. Some of our guests may need it when they learn how they've been deceived." As he hung up the phone, his office door burst open. Diane stormed in, her Marsline heels clicking against hardwood, face flushed with anger. Her Amara suit, purchased with his money, he noted grimly, couldn't hide the tension in her shoulders. "What is this about a family gathering?" She slammed her manicured hands on his desk, diamond rings catching the sunlight. "I've had calls all morning. The country club, our entire social circle. What game are you playing, Albert?" "Sit down, Diane." He remained seated, his voice dangerously calm. "We need to discuss your investment strategy." "My what?" Color drained from her face as she sank into the leather chair across from him. "Your financial planning." Albert opened his laptop, turning the screen toward her. "With your friend Ethan. Quite ambitious, really. Multiple properties, offshore accounts. You've been remarkably busy behind my back. If this is about the withdrawals." Diane's voice took on the smooth, practiced tone she perfected over years of manipulation. "I can explain everything. Ethan found some incredible investment opportunities. Like this one." He clicked through several documents. 5,000 from our joint account, marked as Christina's tuition, transferred directly to an account in the Cayman Islands registered to Ethan Weston. Her perfectly maintained facade cracked slightly. "How did you?" "Or these hotel charges." Another click brought up a new screen. "The Parkview Hotel, the Landmark, the Platinum Towers, all on days you were supposedly at yoga class or your book club. Tell me, does Downward Dog usually cost $500 an hour?" "You've been spying on me." Her voice rose with manufactured outrage. "After 25 years of marriage, you've resorted to..." "After 25 years of marriage," Albert cut in, his voice sharp as a blade, "you resorted to stealing from me. Tell me, does Ethan know you're not as wealthy as you pretended to be? That every dollar you gave him was stolen from my accounts?" Before she could respond, the door opened again. Christina rushed in, her face streaked with tears, her designer clothes, also paid for with his money, wrinkled from distress. "Dad, stop this." She moved to stand beside her mother. "Whatever you're planning." "Sit down, Christina." Albert's voice could have frozen fire. "We were just discussing your tuition payments, or should I say, the fake tuition payments you helped your mother hide. I didn't know what that money was for." Christina protested weakly, sinking into the chair beside Diane. "Mom said it was just temporary." "Temporary." Albert projected a series of transactions onto his office wall. 2 years of systematic withdrawals, hotel meetings, property viewings, multiple offshore accounts. "Tell me, what part of that seems temporary to you?" "I needed that money for our future," Diane interjected, reaching for her daughter's hand. "Everything I did was for this family, Albert. If you just let me explain." "Explain what?" He enlarged a bank statement, transfers to Ethan's accounts, jewelry purchases, weekend trips with your lover while our daughter covered your tracks. The color drained from Christina's face. "Mom, You said those trips were for real estate seminars, Christina said. You told me Ethan was helping with investment planning. He was helping, Diane insisted, squeezing her daughter's hand. Albert's making it sound sordid, but it was all legitimate business. Legitimate. Albert's laugh was devoid of warmth. Let's discuss your lover's legitimate business practices. He turned to address the crowd now forming at his door, associates who'd overheard the commotion. Many of you know Ethan Weston as a successful real estate agent. Tonight, you'll learn what kind of business he really conducts. The back doors opened, and 2 security guards escorted Ethan Weston into the office. His usual confident smile faltered at the sight of the financial records displayed on the wall. Perfect timing. Albert stood, his voice razor-sharp. We were just discussing your business model, Ethan. Care to explain how many other wealthy women you've helped with their investments? This is harassment, Ethan attempted, though sweat beaded on his forehead. Diane and I have legitimate business dealings. Like your legitimate business with Helen Rogers or Angela Moore. Albert clicked to a new document. Tell me, do all your clients end up with empty bank accounts, or just the married ones? What is he talking about? Diane turned to Ethan, her perfectly composed facade crumbling. What other women? Baby, don't listen to him. Ethan tried to soothe her, reaching for her hand, but she pulled away. He's trying to turn us against each other. Everything I've done has been for our future. Your future? Albert's voice dripped with contempt. Show them, Ethan. Show them where the money really went. The offshore accounts, the property schemes, the pattern you've repeated with every wealthy woman you've targeted. Christina stood, her voice shaking. Dad, please, whatever you think Mom did, we can work this out privately. As a family. Family. Albert turned to his daughter, his eyes cold. Was it family loyalty when you helped her hide withdrawals? When you created fake emergencies to justify stealing my money? When you chose to protect her infidelity instead of telling me the truth? I didn't know about the affair. Christina's voice cracked. Mom said Ethan was just a business partner, that you were too focused on work to understand investment opportunities. Investment opportunities. Albert projected a new set of documents. 3 divorces in 5 years, all involving wealthy women who mysteriously lost their savings, offshore accounts under multiple aliases, fraudulent real estate deals. He turned to Diane. Tell me, dear wife, did you bother to check his background before you started stealing my money to fund his schemes? Diane sat frozen, staring at the evidence while her social circle watched her crumble. Associates who'd once respected her now whispered among themselves, shooting disgusted glances in her direction. But it gets worse. Albert clicked again, revealing text messages between Diane and Christina. My own daughter, who I put through college, who I supported in every way, helped coordinate the lies, creating fake emergencies, hiding withdrawals, under the guise of tuition payments. Dad, please. Christina sobbed, but Albert pressed on. He turned to address the onlookers. I filed for divorce. Given the evidence of financial misconduct and fraud, my wife will receive nothing. The house, the investments, the properties, all of it stays with me. Commotion filled the office as people whispered in shock. Some hurried past with averted eyes, while others lingered, hungry for more details of the scandal. As the security guards began escorting people out, Diane made one last attempt, her voice barely audible. What am I supposed to do now? Where am I supposed to go? That's not my concern anymore. Albert didn't look up from his laptop. I suggest updating your resume. The mall is always hiring. 3 months later, Albert sat in his new penthouse office, reviewing the final divorce decree. The settlement was exactly as he demanded. Diane received nothing except her personal belongings. The house, cars, and investments all stayed with him. Peter Lawson entered with the morning newspaper. Thought you might want to see this. He laid the paper on Albert's desk, open to the society pages. The headline read, From Socialite to Sales Clerk, The Fall of Diane Green. Below it, A grainy photo showed Diane behind the counter at Caldwell's, the very store where she'd once spent thousands on designer clothes. Her perfectly maintained appearance had slipped. No more designer suits, no more professional blowouts. The article quoted former friends, each distancing themselves from the scandal. "I never really trusted her," Elaine Marshall claimed in the piece. "There was always something calculating behind that smile. Hard to believe our paths ever crossed." Theresa Phillips added, "The country club has standards after all." Peter settled into the chair across from Albert. Quite a change from last year's charity gala, where she was the chair of the committee. She made her choice. Albert's voice held no sympathy. How's Christina adjusting to her new reality? Working 2 jobs to cover her student loans. Peter glanced at his notes. The diner on 5th Street from 6 to 2, then the coffee shop until closing. Her roommate says she cries herself to sleep most nights. "Actions have consequences," Albert replied, turning to look out over the city he conquered through decades of hard work. "She chose to help her mother deceive me. Now she can learn what it means to support herself." "The diner manager says she's a different person now," Peter continued. "No more designer clothes or entitled attitude. Actually works hard, though her hands are raw from washing dishes." "Good." Albert's voice was firm. "It's about time she learned the value of honest work." "And Ethan, facing fraud charges in 3 states." Albert's smile was cold. "Helen Rogers and the others made excellent witnesses. His real estate license has been permanently revoked." "Some might say you were harsh," Peter ventured, exposing everything so publicly, cutting off Christina completely. "Some might say betrayal deserves harsh consequences." Albert turned back to his desk. "I built everything I have through hard work and integrity. They chose to repay that with lies and manipulation. Now they can build their own lives, just like I did." The intercom buzzed. "Mr. Green, Diane's sister is here. She insists on speaking with you." "Send her away," Albert said, his voice ice-cold. "And block her number. I'm done with that entire family." As Peter left, Albert opened his bottom drawer, removing a family photo from years ago. Happy smiles, perfect poses, all of it fake, he knew now. Without hesitation, he dropped it in the shredder, watching as their false happiness turned to confetti. The sun was setting over the city as he gathered his things to leave. His phone showed missed calls, 2 from Diane's sister, 3 from Christina. He deleted them without listening to the messages. In the parking garage, he passed Christina's old car, now sold to a young executive in his firm. His daughter had been reduced to taking the bus to her minimum wage jobs, learning for the first time what it meant to earn her way. The next morning's mail brought a letter from Christina. "Dad, I understand now the value of money, of hard work, of honesty. My hands hurt from washing dishes. My feet ache from waiting tables. And every day, I realize how much I took for granted. Mom was wrong. I was wrong. Please." He dropped the letter in the shredder without finishing it. Some lessons had to be learned the hard way. A week later, he overheard 2 executives discussing Diane. "Saw her at the mall yesterday," one said, working the makeup counter. "Can you believe it? She used to spend thousands there every month. Heard she's living in a studio apartment on Ridgemont Way," the other replied. "Quite a fall from that mansion she had." Albert smiled as he walked past. Justice, he thought, sometimes worked in perfect circles. Some would call him unforgiving, cold, harsh, but Albert Green hadn't built his empire by being weak, and he wouldn't maintain it by showing mercy to those who had betrayed him. Let them learn the hard way, he thought as he drove home to his penthouse. Let them understand that actions have consequences, that trust, once broken, can never be repaired. The city lights blurred below him as he stood at his window, a glass of scotch in hand. The betrayal had cost him a wife and daughter, but it hadn't broken him. Instead, it had reminded him of an essential truth. In the end, the only person you can truly count on is yourself. He raised his glass to his reflection in the window. Here's to justice, served cold. To consequences faced. To lessons learned the hard way. Albert Green had always believed in paying whatever price necessary to maintain his principles. Tonight, as he looked out over the city he conquered, he knew he'd made the right choice. Sometimes, the price of justice was letting go of everything you thought you had. But for a man who'd built his life on hard work and integrity, it was a price worth paying. The night spread out before him, dark and empty of the lies that had filled his life for so long. In that emptiness, he found not loneliness, but clarity. His empire remained, built on the foundation of his principles, stronger now, without the weight of betrayal. Let them call him harsh. Let them whisper about his cruelty. Albert Green had learned long ago that respect was earned through strength, not mercy. And as he stood in his penthouse, watching his city glitter below, he knew he'd made the right choice. The price of justice was high, but he'd gladly pay it again. After all, principles, unlike people, never betrayed you. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.